In one of the most bizarre endings to a playoff game this season, the Timberwolves' hopes of extending their series against the Oklahoma City Thunder were dashed by the smallest sliver of time imaginable, 0.1 seconds. That's right, 1/10 of a second. As the final seconds of Game 4 ticked away on Monday night, Minnesota found themselves trailing by a mere 2 points, 128 to 126, with an opportunity to potentially tie the game in a dramatic finish. The play unfolded in the final moments when Oklahoma City's star, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, threw a seemingly harmless pass toward the sideline. The ball veered out of bounds, and in a twist of fate, a fan reached out and caught it before it could touch the ground. The clock, which had been ticking down to zero, stopped at 0.1 seconds, leaving the Timberwolves with one final chance to attempt a miracle shot. But here's the real kicker. Had the clock hit exactly zero, the officials would have been able to initiate a review. That single 1/10 of a second prevented an instant replay from taking place, and potentially a completely different outcome to the game. Gilgeous-Alexander, OKC, throws the ball toward the sideline, where it is touched by a spectator out of bounds. The game clock runs down to 0000.1. After conferencing, the officials reset the game clock to 0000.3. Since the clock did not reach 000.0, instant replay cannot be triggered in this situation. For the Timberwolves, the difference between 0.1 seconds and 0.0 seconds was a game changer. Had the clock struck zero, the officials would have been permitted to review the play under the league's rules. In all likelihood, upon further inspection, they would have determined that the ball had touched the fan with 0.5 or 0.6 seconds remaining on the clock. Ample time for Minnesota to potentially set up a high-percentage shot. In the high-pressure moments of an NBA playoff game where every possession is magnified, that 0.3 seconds was hardly enough for the Timberwolves to execute a meaningful play. The reality was grim. A catch-and-shoot attempt from any distance was essentially impossible under such tight time constraints. Minnesota, needing a miracle, failed to get a shot off before the buzzer sounded, and the Thunder walked away with a 128 to 126 victory, securing a 3-1 series lead. While it's easy to get caught up in the drama of the final moments, the reality is that Minnesota's fate wasn't sealed by that 0.1 second gap alone. Their failure to capitalize on earlier opportunities, like a defensive breakdown that allowed Gilgeous-Alexander to drive for a key layup, or missing free throws that could have shifted the momentum, also played a role in their playoff struggles. However, it's the slimmest of margins, like the one that kept the review from being triggered, that often define a game's outcome in the NBA. Imagine the scenario. Had the officials been able to review the clock, they could have adjusted it to a more accurate time, let's say 0.5 seconds or 0.6 seconds. That's a window wide enough to get off a decent catch-and-shoot attempt. A few seconds in the NBA is a lifetime. Just ask players who've hit last-second buzzer beaters or drilled impossible shots with fractions of a second left on the clock. For Minnesota, the frustration is palpable. They fought tooth and nail to keep the game close, only to see their last gasp chance evaporate because of a technicality. The Timberwolves were mere moments away from forcing a potential game-tying play, yet the tiniest sliver of time stood between them and the possibility of extending their playoff journey. The impact on the Timberwolves' postseason chances. With their backs now against the wall, Minnesota has no room for error. Trailing 3-1 in the series, they must win 3 straight games to advance to the next round. The odds are daunting, but not entirely impossible. In the past, we've seen teams overcome similar deficits to pull off historic comebacks. But for the Timberwolves, their biggest challenge may not be the Thunder, but the weight of what could have been. The what if scenarios will undoubtedly linger in the minds of Timberwolves fans, players, and coaches alike. Could they have pulled off an improbable win if the review had been triggered? Or would they have faced the same fate, even with a half second more on the clock? Only time will tell, but for now, it's clear that the Timberwolves are left to rue a 0.1 second discrepancy that may have cost them their postseason dreams. As for the Thunder, they head into Game 5 with momentum on their side, looking to close out the series and advance to the next stage of their playoff run. The Timberwolves, on the other hand, are left to fight for their survival, knowing that every second counts, especially the ones that seem so insignificant but ultimately make all the difference.